Guys, in today we're going to be doing a mock draft here. Obviously, you guys already saw the one I did post draft or draft combine with Mikey Weisenberg. If you guys want to see that, go check it out. So what are we going to talk about today? Now that the NBA draft combine has been completed with measurements, athletic testing, and all that good stuff, I just thought it would be a nice time to talk, as tomorrow is going to be the withdrawal day, and I wanted to make a mock before the withdrawal and then after the withdrawal just to hear your guys' thoughts. And to be honest, we already know who the top two picks are going to be, and the question comes in here at the third pick, with Philadelphia looking to add a forward or a bigger wing to pair with Paul George if they keep him, and maybe a win now contributor. People have been saying VJ Edgecombe or a Con Knipple could go third. Right now, we're going to stick with the consensus that Ace Bailey, even though he's 6'7", he shot 35% on 5 attempts per game from downtown, and he was in the 91st percentile in transition scoring. Now, this would mean VJ Edgecombe, who I think is like a Kason Wallace, mixed with Victor Oladipo, especially with LaMelo at point guard, Bridges and Miller currently at the forward spots, and Mark Williams at center. Between VJ, Trey Johnson, and Con Knipple, I think Edgecombe gives you the electrifying two-way guard that we saw what a defensive guy could look like next to LaMelo when they had Trey Mann there, and hopefully they bring back Trey Mann, he can maybe mentor them. And I think Trey Johnson going to Utah just makes a bunch of sense. He can play either the 2 or the 3 in small units, and he would just give him a score to, be able to go in bunches. Best case scenario, he's going to be a guy who could maybe be a fringe all-star, one of the best scorers in the league. Worst case, I think he's a perennial 6-man. Over here, once we get to the Washington Wizards, I think this is where it becomes very interesting to think, who would they go after? This is an Oklahoma City ran front office. Will Dawkins and Michael Winger both come from Sam Presti trees. And to me, I personally really think Kasparis Yakuchunas, or Yakuchonis. Is it Yakuchonis or Yakuchunas? I think it's Yakuchunas. Either way, I think he's the type of guy that I would want to bring in right here, as he could be a 1 or a 2. I think Jeremiah Fears needs the ball too much in his hand and isn't a good as shooter as Kasparis, who combines elite playmaking, is bigger, and I just like that versatility. Now, if the Pelicans are really rebuilding, getting Con Knipple, who is a Swiss Army knife who can shoot the ball, doesn't need the ball in his hand, can connect, play in transition, and defend. So to me, it just makes a lot of sense for them to go after a guy like that, especially that they're allegedly going to be building around Zion Williamson. Over here, I think if the Nets are on the clock and either Jeremiah Fears or Kasparis is available, both of them fill the positional need that they have been looking for, which is a future lead guard. And both of them, if it doesn't work out as a point guard, could be, shooting guard. So I think it's a good situation. I feel like it's also an open secret. Come on, we'll watch this rim running, shot blocking, raw player from NBA Africa is going to go to Toronto, especially with Jakob Poeltl probably up for extension, if not a trade candidate, so he could be that successor. And then you look over here and you're at the Rockets. I think they're going to be taking the best player available, probably focusing on a defensive-minded, tough front court player, sort of someone like Colin Murray-Boyles or Rasheer Fleming, that maybe even Asa Newell, that fits Ime Udoka's switchable high IQ scheme. Now, if I'm Portland over here, I think Noah Esengun, or is it Esengay? Either way, someone tell me the correct pronunciation on that one right there. I've heard 2. But with that being said, the Portland Trailblazers have DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams entering the final years of their contracts. So having a guy who can come in and give them some defensive versatility, like Noah, while also being able to develop either as a small forward or a 4, would be huge for them, especially with their positions. Now, Derek Queen going to Chicago right here allows them to move forward with Zach Collins and Nikola Vucevic entering the final seasons of their deals. So drafting someone who could play alongside Buzelis is worth it keeping an eye for. Now, Atlanta, I really like Newell going right here to Atlanta. He's more of a 5, and he gives them kind of an opposite of what Onyeka is. I think Thomas Sorber is another option here. Even a Carter Bryant. I think they're going to go with a guy who can help them right now. And this is why I think someone like Rasheer Fleming might be available. But I would not be surprised if at this... my other thing is that I think they like guys like Carter Bryant or a Liam McNeely. But if Newell's right here, it would allow them to take a 5 to help them out right now and then draft somebody. Or sign someone in free agency, and then with their later pick they can get a wing. If San Antonio comes onto the clock right here, do you think they go Yagor Demon, the potential demigod unicorn at the guard spot, or do they go for Jace Richardson, who's kind of like an Eric Gordon-esque player, or a Carter Bryant? I think Carter Bryant would be the guy that they'd go for, especially at the wing and having someone help them out in transition. Over here, OKC is on the clock. I could see them going for Yagor, even though he doesn't fit a positional need. He's just kind of what Sam Presti loves. Same thing with a Jace Richardson, but with Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren being their only 2 pure bigs, Thomas Sorber might be 6'9", but he's like a 7'7" wingspan. He's the type of guy that you want filling up the space. Last time we did talk about Yagor going to Orlando, and I did really like that at the time, and I could see that being the pick, but I do know that they need 3-point shooting. So Jace Richardson would be the type of guy that I would go there. Now at 17, I have Minnesota on the clock, and Liam McNeely, if he's there, he's kind of a Corey Kispert-esque player. I hate to do a white guy on white guy comparison, but that was one right there that you could look at. And he would fit perfectly in between the lineup for Minnesota. Over here, we have Wizards back on the clock, and I wonder if they take highest potential or just best player. I wouldn't be surprised if Yagor did fall this far, they would scoop him up. Now, Mr. Jeremiah Fear, so we had 18 Wizards taking Yagor, and at 19 we have the Nets on the clock where they took Fears. So I think them taking a guy like Rasheer Flemings to best help space the floor next to Noah Clowney, who should be maybe played more as a 5, would really help them out. At 20, it's the Heat, and I think Nick Clifford is perfect there because he kind of fits what they need, and he would allow them to have more versatility on the wing to either play bigger or smaller, as he can play the 2, the 3, or the 4, and is a pass, dribble, shoot guy. We had Trey Johnson go at 20 or at 5 to the Jazz. So at 21, the Jazz back on the clock, and I think Nolan Traore would be a good fit for them at that point because he gives them the versatility of having another guard, actually more of a floor general that fits their need. Now, we had Newell go at 13 to the Hawks, so they're back on the clock at 22. They could go Danny Wolf, but I really think Cedric Howard right here fits what they need now that they went front court. They get a wing player, especially with Jalen Johnson being out. And at 23, it's the Pacers, so I think the Pacers would go Jean Berger. They would love Rasheer Flemings, but he's off the clock, and they need a big who can run the floor. At 24, it's the Thunder again, and they took Thomas Sorber. I wouldn't be surprised if they even took Danny Wolf to give him some more size, which I love, just going double big there, one a floor spacer and one an interior. So I would do that. The Magic took Jace Richardson, and that gave them some 3-point shooting. If they want a ball handler or a guy who could maybe play multiple positions, I think Ben Seraph would be that type of player, as he fits a positional need for what they need. And I really like that because it allows them to continue to play big. They like to be big. I think Will Riley at 26 to Brooklyn, just giving them a guy who's a really good slasher, is a swing man who had point guard skills growing up, as that was his original position, and then he's became more of a wing player. At 27, Brooklyn, if they keep this pick, I think they also go, upside guy. They took Fears, they took Will Riley, which is a wing, a forward, and I really don't like any of the centers too much as developmental guys for a team like this. So to me, they could take a swing with a Hugo Gonzalez right here, and I think they would do that because Jordi Fernandez, being from Spain, we're going to do the Spanish connection. I like the idea of Ryan Kalkbrenner going right here, but because they're probably going to have to make a decision on a guard, I really like the idea of them going out and getting a Walter Clayton who can come out and start bombing from day one. At 29, Cam Jones can play is more of a 2, but he can also play the 1, so the Suns. So at 29, we have the Celtics taking Mr. Walter Clayton Jr. At my apology, at 30 or 29, the Suns took Cam Jones, and then at 30, it's the Clippers. And the Clippers here, do they go an athletic guy? Do they go, I think a small forward like Noah Penda, who could be mentored by Nick Batum, would be perfect. 31, I think LeBaron Philon is going to remind Tim Conley is a similar build to Bones Highland, but more of a defensive player, and they already have Bones on a 2-way, so that works out perfect if they wanted to bring him in. I already mentioned that earlier when the Celtics had taken Mr. Walter Clayton, that he should be a guy to consider alongside Ryan Kalkbrenner, and I think Ryan's going to be available at 32. This could be flip-flopped if they feel like someone's going to try to poach Walter. I do like over here maybe a Maxime Renault coming in alongside a Mark Williams. They do need some bigs or we've been shooting, and this is 33, which is the Hornets, and they had taken VJ Edgecombe. So I'm going to go Janai Broom right here to give them a backup big because they need a backup big. Outside of that, who could be someone that they go? I would like the idea of a Tyrese Proctor or a Hunter Salas. I'm going to go Hunter Salas right here. I think this might be a little bit early for him and they could trade back, but get a local guy who can play the 2 or the 3 or even a pinch the 1. Kind of a Gary Trent type guy. Over here, it is Drake Powell at 35 to the 76ers. Upside guy who could sneak into the first round. I just think he's a jack of all trades, a master of none, who has a 43-inch max vertical, 37 standing. So he's someone that people will like, but he isn't necessarily a day 1 guy, probably year 2 or 3. And this is a similar thing with Adua Fierro, who's a little bit older, but a freak athlete. And at 36, the Nets are there, so we would have the Nets take him if they even keep all these picks. Now at 37, it's the Pistons, and the Pistons would be a team I think that would either want to find some shooting or a guy that they could develop. And Dink Pate, if he is going to go this early, I think that's someone they would consider. But Bogi Markovic, another guy that I think could sneak into the first round, someone that I think is the biggest sleeper in this year's draft class, as he's a pass, dribble, shoot, forward, switch big, kind of a bigger Pascal Siakam coming out of Mega Basket. I really think this is a guy, especially Pistons, that they need a guy at that position. He would help them out at the 37th pick. With the 38th pick, Maxime Renault right here going to San Antonio. Boys with Mr. Victor Wembanyama. They take him. It makes a ton of sense. And we go over to 39, which is the Raptors. And I think the Raptors are going to be a team that they already took. Come on, we'll watch. Do they go? I mean, Micah Peavy is someone that I think they would really like, but Alex Tui is another one. I think Dink Pate, a guy who can play the 2 or the 3. He's a swingman. He was supposed to be kind of like a point guard, but that didn't really develop into that. But at 39, the Raptors would take a swing on that. We have the Wizards who took Yagor and Kasparis over here, and at 40, the Wizards would probably again take the highest upside guy. And I know Bird and Todd Pettiford are still in the draft, but they could be guys who could go back. I like the idea of them taking a swing on Rocco Zerkarski, who is a 7'3" drop big. Can move decently. Probably at best is going to be a spot starter or a high-end backup. At 41, the Warriors are over here, and I think they're a guy that take Alex Tui, who's going to be able to play the combo forward position for them, guard and hit open threes, and that's what they need. Now at 42, it is the Sacramento Kings, and the Sacramento Kings are a team that I think they obviously some help up front would be nice. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a team that takes Hassan Yang. California has big Asian population, and they need a backup big, and that works out for them right there. Now moving forward, Chaz Lanier going to the Utah Jazz would be something if they didn't take Nolan Traore and Trey Johnson, but because they did, I think they would like to go with a bigger player, maybe a more of a wing. Michael Ruzic would be the type of guy they would draft that would allow them to stash him if they need. So at 43, we'll have the Jazz take that. At 44, it's the Thunder, who took Danny Wolf and Thomas Sorber. So I think a wing or a forward would be someone that I would really like to see them get out here. And Micah Peavy just seems like the type of defensive feel guy that they would like to bring in. So at 44, we'll have the Thunder take him, Peavy. Now at 45, the Bulls are going to be looking, after taking Derek Queen, probably more of a guard. And it's not like a guard heavy class in my opinion. I also think the way that they do this is always super annoying. But Kobe Brea or Chaz Lanier, and this is where I think Chaz Lanier goes as the Bulls value three-point shooting. Chaz would go at 46 if he's not taken already by the Bulls or somebody else. So at 45, we have the Bulls take Chaz Lanier. At 46, Kobe Brea could be the Jalen Wells of this year's draft class, a sharpshooting madman that I really like. Now, Jameer Watkins, I think, is someone who should stay in the draft at 47. He would literally get minutes playing with the Bucks, so I like that one. And looking at the rest of this is 48. It's the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies would be a team that I think they would be interesting in looking at a big or someone who could help them in the front court. I think Ethan Almanza would be someone they would consider. There are also people who just, will take swings on guys that you haven't thought of. And I think because Brandon Clark could be on his way out, Ethan Almanza would be the developmental pick they might go after. Now, the Cavaliers are a team. So at 48, we had Ethan Almanza. So 49, I think we're going to go real quickly here. And I'm trying to choose guys that we know are going to be in the draft. So at 49, Mark Sears gives them a point guard to back up Craig Porter, especially if Ty Jerome leaves. Sion James, 50 to the Knicks makes sense. He's a toolsy guy that they would really like. Now moving forward, 51. Do you think Grant Nelson, a guy who can be a switch big, more of a 4, maybe could play some spotlight 3, goes to a team like the Clippers, would be able to play multiple positions? We had Cam Jones go earlier to the Suns. Suns are back on the clock. They would take Tyrese Proctor if he stays in the draft at 53. Now we had the Jazz take guards and a forward, and this is a really weak draft in terms of like bigs, but I think Lachlan Olbrich would be someone they really liked. He killed it in the pre-draft, and he's somebody that I think they'd be interested in. Over here, the Pacers have at 54, so at 53, we had Lachlan Olbrich go to the Utah Jazz. At 54, Matthew Cleveland goes to the Pacers. They've had a history of drafting guys from Miami, so that one makes sense. Now, the center position would be a position that I think the Lakers would address if there's someone available, but in our draft right now, it's been poor. I mean, I would love Coleman Hawkins going there because he would give them some size and some passing that I think people wouldn't realize would be great, but I think they would want a shooter right here. I mean, Jackson Robinson or anybody that's signed with Clutch Sports would be to consider, and I think an older guy would really help them. Now, we've kind of taken a lot of the older guys in this draft, so it's become, very, very limited. I think RJ Luis, if he stays in the draft, would fit their need of like a forward right there. This pick is not in the draft, so ignore it. And we have our boys back on the clock, the Grizzlies at 57 after the Lakers took I'm blanking on his name, but now we're Momo Faye, but they already took Jackson Robinson would be someone they take a swing. He went from BYU to Kentucky, and he can play the 2 or the 3. The Magic are back on the clock. I don't know if Payton Sandford would be someone they take, but Coleman Hawkins would be a big they would take. They would appreciate his passing, and I think that fits what they need. I think Jonas Adu would fit what the Cavs would want in terms of a backup big that they could throw on the 2-way, and if it works, he's a pretty good rim runner who can catch some lobs. Now, With the final pick of the draft, it's the Rockets. Who will they go? We'll do Ben Hensall because they could stash him. He's a poor man's Tyler Hero. By the way, we had the Lakers take back there, which was it RJ Lewis or Lewis, by the way. I said Luis, but I think it's RJ Lewis. This is our mock draft. I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. What did you guys think of this? And was there anything you would have wanted to change? Let me know about the commentary. We just did this off the dome while I was waiting for my girlfriend to get out of her law externship. So peace out. Hope you guys did enjoy. Ciao.